Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to Couch Conversations with the Doctors, where health is wealth. So I want to say hello to our Facebook, Instagram, Periscope, and all of our social media family. What night is it tonight? It is Monday night, and it is Couch Conversations with the Doctors. Thank you guys for being here with us. Remember to start your watch party, share, and share as we have good conversation about your wealth. Remember that this informational program is just for that, informational purposes only, but we are here to instill in you that true health is wealth. We're going to go around the table as we do always and make brief introductions of our esteemed panel that we have here on this evening. To my co-worker, Dr. Douglas Graham. Doug, if you can introduce yourself to everyone that's here.
Good evening. Listen, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm a retired physician. I worked in the Chicago area for many years. And about a year and a half ago, I retired and went to Representative Danny Davis's office as a congressional fellow. And I'm happy to be here, and I'll try and answer your questions.
Wonderful, Doug. Wonderful. To the man who says that I threaten him to be here all the time, but I think it keeps him on the right path. That's our very own Dr. James Miller. Dr. Miller, if you can introduce yourself to everyone that's here.
Yes. Good evening, everybody. Again, my name is Dr. James Miller, and I retired from clinical practice, and I've been spending my time working on some projects in the community, trying to improve healthcare, trying to improve education. So I'm here tonight to try to answer as many questions and improve your informational system so that you can have better health.
Wonderful, wonderful. To that urologist of the stars, our very own Dr. Terry Mason.
Good evening, and it's always a pleasure to be here with my esteemed colleagues. And I want you to remember the 3 H's for the night. Health happens at home.
Oh, all right, Dr. Mason. All right. To that man who's the healthcare guru, the weight loss guru, the family medicine practice doctor, the one who's going to get you on track and make sure that you lose a little weight at the same time. That's our very own Dr. Terry Mason.
Or Tony Hampton.
Tony Hampton. I'm sorry. I'm glad I didn't have meat in that same conversation.
Well, welcome, everybody. I think many of us are here because we care about the community, as echoed by Dr. Miller. I'm a family doctor. I have extra training in obesity medicine. I woke up one day and realized that you can heal with your diet and exercise and less stress and, more sleep. So my job is to, I woke up, I want to wake everybody else up so we can heal. So I'm really on a mission to do that. And I call it achieving metabolic health. And I'm happy to be here tonight and looking forward to any questions you guys have.
Wonderful. Hey, Linda Johnson, how are you? She said, good evening to everyone. Mary Ballinger says, good evening to every one of you. Miriam Pittman, the new author who just released 2 books, she's here on this evening, and she's saying good evening to everyone. To Martha is here as well, and Martha is saying good evening. And to our family, our infectious disease specialist, our HIV specialist, our Near North representative, and the dad extraordinaire, that's Dr. Bonnie Pete Thomas. Dr. Pete, who looks frozen. There you go. Dr.
Muted
Pete?
now.
So Dr. Pete is muted. So while he's getting all that together, we're going to say hey to Officer Claudette Knight, who is here. She says, good evening to everyone. Pete, did you unmute?
He's on mute.
So while Pete is trying to unmute, all right, so Pete's having some technical difficulties. I know he'll be right back in. And to our vanguard of healthcare, the guru of healthcare, the gentleman who makes sure that he instills in us each and every Monday night that health is wealth, our very own Congressman Danny K. Davis of the Illinois 7th Congressional District.
Well, today is Monday, and I generally always have good Mondays because it follows Sunday. And of course, yesterday was Resurrection Day, and I had a very pleasant day. And no matter how hard I try, people just keep bringing me food, food, food. I mean, I've had so much food in the last month. I mean, my refrigerator is just filled. So I want to thank all of those who've been bringing food and putting it on my porch, putting notes in the doorway. So I'm well taken care of in the food category. But I really had a wonderful day because I did 2 radio shows on yesterday. One was at 7 o'clock a.m. and the other one was at 7 o'clock p.m. And so they were both great. And I had invited Representative Lauren Underwood to be with me last night, but she couldn't make it. So we'll have her another time. But I had a pleasant day. I want to thank the folks over at the Mile Square Health Center because I went there today and got a COVID-19 test, and that came out okay. And the reason that I was there to get the test is because I'm scheduled to spend some time tomorrow with the Vice President of the United States. And of course, everybody who's going to be in contact in proximity to her need to make sure that they're okay and not transmitting. And so I'm looking forward because she's going to be in town to talk about the Biden administration efforts to get everybody vaccinated. And whether you Democrat, Republican, Dixiecrat, doctor, nurse, can't read, can't write, can't do anything, you have to say that they've done a pretty good job of getting people vaccinated. I mean, any way you cut it, no matter, you can be an agnostic, you can not believe in government, you can be whatever you want to be, but you'd have to agree that the numbers of people who have been vaccinated, it's incredible. And it's picking up each and every day, and they're getting more shots in people's arms. And they're being honest with people. They're letting people know that that's no guarantee of anything other than a guarantee that you know you've done what you needed to do to try and be as protected as you can be. So I'm looking forward to that interaction and that discussion that will take place on tomorrow. And I'm looking forward to the discussion this evening. I think we've got some very interesting topics online. And thank you all for being here. So, Nikki, I am ready to roll.
Nikki may be frozen.
Yeah, she may be frozen. So before, while we wait for Nikki to come back, I just wanted to introduce myself. So I'm Dr. Pete Thomas. I'm the Director of Medical Support Services at Near North over the MAT and HIV program there. And so I'm excited to be here and help answer some questions tonight. Shout out to Congressman Davis and your efforts and Pastor James, Dr. Miller, because we vaccinated a lot of people, 1,100. Am I understand last weekend?
Well,
That was tremendous. On the west side, it's the best side of Chicago.
yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, that was real powerful. So thank you so much for that. I mean, we can get right into it. Nikki, you back? Not yet. Not yet. But tonight's topic, we're going to talk a little bit about 3 different topics. One is sarcoidosis. The other one is hypertension. So from any of my colleagues, Doug, I think this is your wheelhouse. You want to give us a snapshot of what sarcoidosis is?
Let's see if I get my off mute. I'd be happy to do that, Pete. Sarcoidosis, in many ways, is kind of like lupus. It begins with some kind of irritation or inflammation, and it starts in the lungs. And most people will feel cough and fatigue, short of breath, and they'll see their doctor. Most of the time, it'll go away on its own. But it's a tricky disease. How your body takes care of it depends on your immune system. And as we learned last time, if you have West African relatives, your immune system is extra powerful, and its response may be more than the body needs. And you may begin to form little bumps and lumps. They call those granulomas. And it's kind of like if you peel them apart, they're kind of like an onion. They're layers and layers and layers of different things. These granulomas are troublesome because they can occur just about anywhere. We often see them in the skin. They can be in the liver. They can be the lymph nodes, but they're especially dangerous if they're on the heart because they can interfere with the wiring of the heart and interfere with the way that your heart beats. It's really important to get that diagnosis and to see the different specialists in this disease so that they can make sure that you're not harmed by it. Now, it has a couple other tricky places. It can also affect your eyes and affect your sight, and it can also affect the lining of the brain too. So that's why this is not just a single specialist disease, but a multi-specialist disease. Nobody knows what causes it, but we do know it's genetically determined. It's more genetically driven than lupus is. And if you have West African roots, you've got a 4 to 17 times higher incidence than you do if you have a Northern European background.
I just want to quickly comment about, I'm listening to my colleague, my esteemed colleague, and he mentioned, it's about your immune system. And so the first thing is we need to make sure we're having a strong immune system. That's number one. Number two, when I mentioned in my opening intro, I said it's about metabolic disease. So, what causes metabolic disease? Well, inflammation. So what you're going to find is that 80% of the diseases that we suffer from are inflammation. So they say they don't know the cause of this stuff. I can tell you the cause: inflammation. Where does inflammation come from? Your diet, your stress, your lack of sleep, horrible relationships that you're in, not, eating all the time, inflammation. So if we can do better in the area of inflammation, if we have sarcoidosis, we can reduce the symptoms. I mean, why would I want to take hydroxychloroquine and steroids and methotrexate when I can just reduce my inflammation through my diet? Because guess what? That's all they're doing with the medication. They're not curing anything. All they're doing is reducing inflammation to give you another day without pain and suffering, to save your eyes, save your kidneys. But at the end of the day, if we change our lifestyle, if we have sarcoid, it won't bother us so much, if at all. And because it goes into remission for a lot of people. A lot of people have it and it doesn't bother them much. And it's kind of, this idea, and again, when you look at these, you would think that when they call it the practice of medicine, they didn't lie, because like so many conditions that we read our book, we pay all this money to go to medical school, and the first thing it says, cause unknown. Well, what I'm going to school for? But the cause is our lifestyle. And I just want to emphasize that over and over again, that almost everything we talk about tonight, we can either reverse or prevent. Sarcoid is a little trickier because once you've gotten to that point, it's about suppressing it so it won't bother you.
Tony, I couldn't help but walk in after you opened that door. All right. You know that I was going to do that. And I want to underscore what Dr. Hampton is saying, because too many of us have been fooled and lulled into a false sense of security with what we think our doctors can do with medications. And so what Dr. Hampton is saying is that we have to stop thinking about the word diet. I'd rather use the term Prince calls, rather than talking about a diet, is a live it. We need to really be talking about a live it, because the stuff that we're doing is causing us to die. And we need to think about, it's the problem with the diet is that you think of it like a project. It has a beginning and an end. Okay. And so we change our eating for a period of time that we have at the beginning. And then we go back to doing the same thing at the end of that time. And what happens? The same things come back. So you have to make a decision. I would rather you not do a diet. I would rather you decide that you're going to eat to live. And that's a lifelong commitment, not 30 days, not 90 days, not 6 months, not 1 year. It is a lifelong commitment. And I want to say that to underscore what Dr. Hampton is saying, and that we have to make a decision. Do we want to take care of our bodies for the rest of our life? Because every cell, all over 50 trillion cells in our body, are either nourished by what we eat or damaged by what we eat. The choice is mainly yours.
That's excellent.
What's the treatment? I mean, what can individuals expect if they're going to the doctor for this illness?
Oh, we're talking about sarcoidosis, Representative Davis?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so initially, the initial treatment is going to be steroids, which in themselves have lots of side effects. They're going to increase your appetite. They're going to change your mood. They're going to make it hard to sleep. They may make you really depressed or really angry, but you generally have to use in pretty high doses to calm down the inflammation. If that doesn't work, the next steps are things that we use for transplantation, like methotrexate, azathioprine, or leflunomide. And if you have skin disease or joint disease from sarcoidosis, they do use hydroxychloroquine or Plaquenil. Like I said, there's lots of this disease that resembles lupus in many ways. Except lupus doesn't quite get the lumps or the granulomas, it gets other things instead. And there are some very rare sets of circumstances where it makes your calcium go very, very high, and that causes all kinds of problems. And then you need intravenous treatment, which is an expensive time. So there are lots of things why you want to catch this early and treat it early.
I'd just like to add to this, the effect of inflammation is scarring, scar tissue.
Yeah. Yeah.
And scar tissue means that the normal tissue is now being replaced by tissue that cannot produce or function in the same manner that the normal tissue. If it's in your lung, which the major function of the lung is exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide, the scar tissue in your lung can't do that. In addition to that, it causes some other changes that increase the pressures inside of the arteries in your lung. So scar tissue, whatever organ system that is affected by the sarcoidosis, ended up with the granulomatous and scarring. And scarring causes poor function in those organs. If it's in the kidney, if it's in the liver, now you got a scarred liver, and it can no longer, if it reaches a certain point, it can no longer do the things that it should be doing. And therefore, oftentimes people end up with organs that don't function well. And the ultimate bad problem is they end up needing an organ transplant.
Yeah.
If I could just add, I think I agree with everything my colleagues just said. And just a final point might be to, for the patients that are listening, don't always think about something as all or none. So that if your doctor is offering you medications, and the specialist like Dr. Graham is offering you medications, that doesn't mean you can't also opt to holistically treat with exercise, with your nutritional strategy. So you should ask your doctor, what can I do in addition to the Plaquenil and prednisone and all those other really strong medications that can cause a myriad of side effects. What can I eat that might help supplement or help prevent damage from either a progressive sarcoid or from the side effects of the medications that we're taking? So I just want to emphasize that, because sometimes patients will stop the medication and say, well, I saw this on Dr. Oz and I heard this on this program. And you can do both. Just let your provider know about it. And in fact, empower, as a team, talk to them and say, hey, what nutritional strategy might I add to help either manage the sarcoid or manage the side effects of the medicines that I'm taking that can suppress my immune system?
Good point.
And I would say, to Dr. Pete's point, is that unfortunately, physicians are not trained in nutrition. It has not been a core part of our curriculum in medical school. At the University of Illinois, we had one class for 40 minutes in 4 years of medical school. And that wasn't really about nutrition. That was about recognizing very bad nutritional problems like iron deficiency, anemia, or something like that, where you lose a lot of blood. So you got to also understand that there's a lot of information out there, but to make it really simple, I think one of my colleagues mentioned about sleep. You got to get your sleep. You got to drink your fluids, and you got to drink water, not stuff that contains water, but you got to drink water. And you got to do it with regularity. I mean, coffee is nice and it contains water, but that does no liquid substitutes for water but water. That's it. And the other thing is, you need that anything that you fry or alter with some sort of high temperature cooking is not necessarily what we're talking about. We're talking about those things, that more of them that come out of the ground than that walk on it, fly over it, swim in it, or slither around it. So really, it's really kind of simple. And the data is overwhelming now that eating more fruits and vegetables will make a difference. And if you don't believe it, just try it. Just try it for yourself. I did, and a number of people I know have. So, and there are a lot of things, and don't say, well, I don't know how to, no. They got all kinds of places you can look. If you want to find a special dress or a special pair of pants or a special outfit, you know how to go to the internet and find exactly what you want. So don't give me that. You can find what you want when you want to find it. And you can do it on your phone. You can do it in a lot of places. And we right here have resources for you. So we just want you to be as well as you can be and stay in control of your health.
I just want to say this real quick, 2 resources that you need to be aware of. One would be one that Dr. Mason spoke of the last time we had a get together. It was the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. They tend to lean towards a more vegetarian approach. They're doing a lot of work to try to get this message out. And then I belong to the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners. And what we're hoping that these two and they tend to be more of a low carb. I'm bringing it up to say that what we're hoping is that we can get into the medical schools and help develop curricula so that our doctors and future nurses and future pharmacists learn this. If we just wait around for them to do it, it'll probably never happen. So what we're going to do is try to engage and say, hey, we got people who know this information. Let's teach the future clinicians how to do this, because one doctor may have 2,500 patients whose lives he can impact. So that's kind of my vision. And we're going to keep sharing this message, and there's no one size fit all. But what we know for sure is that clinicians need to know about nutrition.
Here's a quick question. Can a scar tissue heal itself?
So I think that's really going to depend a lot on how much scarring there is, and are these little lumps called granulomas? Because sometimes it's small things like you cut or scratch yourself and it heals. But sometimes if you've got a big scar, it's going to cause, you won't have healthy regrowth of the tissue. And that response is going to be individual, based on your genetics, and possibly based on your response to medications. But it's better to treat it when it's persistent than to let it go untreated. The question of persistence is a big issue. How long it goes? It's like a fire. The more it burns, the more damage it's going to do.
Right. So, I mean, we all remember the great Bernie Mac. And, you know, Bernie Mac had sarcoid. I mean, a lot of patients have questions like, well, how did Bernie die? Like, what was the cause of death? I mean, without any of us having the advantage of seeing the autopsy report, but what can kill a sarcoid patient?
Wow, that's a really tough question. Well, part of it is it will affect the electrical system of the heart. Right. And then your heart won't beat regularly. It may stop beating, but beat too fast, because that could be a potentially dangerous event. It can essentially replace all of your liver with scar tissue, and that can be a dangerous event. And that can really affect the tissues of the brain, and that could cause seizures and other mischief as well. So it's not common to have this set of circumstances, and it sounds like it's a pretty tough case, but those are 3 areas that I'd be concerned about. And if you hear sarcoidosis experts talk about this nationally, their big issue is what's going on in the heart, and detect it early, because it could also affect the heart muscles as well. So you really want to be able to evaluate that, look at which organs it's affecting, and address your treatment based on where it's affecting, causing the most mischief.
Yeah, and so I think it's important that, you know, if patients are seeing your primary care, if you're having any symptoms of, you know, palpitations or feeling like your heart is skipping a beat, you really want to make sure that you get your heart evaluated and get a referral over to a cardiologist pretty quickly. And I would say preemptively, if you can, to make sure that you get the care, like Dr. Doug said, before, you know, you don't want to, you know, be in AFib by the time, you're trying to get a cardiology referral. And that's just a very fast, irregular heart rate that can kill you. So you want to make sure that you get your cardiology referral and your evaluation very quickly so that you can get ahead of things. But with that, okay, Dr. Hampton, you want to
this real quick? I just want to emphasize. I said this many episodes in the past when I was in obesity school. If you had a BMI of 25, your risk for AFib was neutral. If you had a BMI of 26, it went up 4%. If you go up to 27, it goes up 8%. Every time you multiply it by 4. So if you had a BMI of 30, and think about how many people in our community are at a BMI of 30. Everybody. So now you have 5 times 4 increased risk of AFib. So again, it goes back to what I said earlier: inflammation. So I'm done with that.
I have a question here. There's a question that says, is there a certain onset age for sarcoidosis?
I'll have to look that one up. I'm not sure.
Actually, last time I had a patient with sarcoid fairly recently, and she was young, and she asked the same question. It's probably confused, but it was like younger people. It seems like they're 20 to 40, you know. And then the other thing I realized when I looked it up, African-American folk are like 10 times more likely to get it, which is, disheartening. But that's kind of what I recall. Because a lot of times we get these patients, if we're fortunate to diagnose them, and then we'll send them right to Dr. Graham, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I learn a lot of stuff when my patients come to me and I'm like, let me look this up real quick and, just remind myself of what I learned at school, and we send them to our specialists.
Yeah, then the other thing is sometimes people will get a random x-ray, and that random x-ray might show hilar adenopathy. That's these large lymph nodes in the middle of your chest, and that will give us a clue. That's sort of one of the classical signs of sarcoid. And when we see that means it's time for us to start to do the workup for that, even before you're symptomatic, before any shortness of breath, any palpitations, or anything like that. If we get a random x-ray and it shows those, because it's one of those things that very few things causes that other than sarcoid. Especially if it's in someone that's African American, you really want to start your workup for sarcoid and then get them right over to Dr. Doug.
Yeah. So go back and answer the question. Most of the time we see it between peoples of age 20 to 40, but there's a second group, ages in the 60s. And that kind of matches our same experience with rheumatoid arthritis and with lupus as well. And it's a slightly different disease in the elderly than it is in the younger people.
So we had another question, and the other question says, I had a cardiac ablation 3 years ago. How do I know my heart is good?
So if that ablation is from sarcoidosis?
I'm assuming, yes.
So I guess the answer is that there's many different ways of looking at how active this disease is. And they can do it by following your EKG. They can do it by blood tests. And there's some nuclear medicine tracer studies that they've now begun to use as well. So the real question is, how active is the sarcoidosis? Is it under control? And if it's under control or in remission or extinguished, then you're in good shape. The problem is if it continues to slowly burn and smolder, like I said, the more the fire burns, the more damage it's going to do. If it's burned out, that's one thing. But if it's still ongoing, that's where the trouble becomes worse.
So is there any correlation between individuals with keloid skin and those who are at risk for more severe internal scarring?
Boy, that's a good question. I'm not sure I could answer that. I'll have to look that one up too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say anecdotally, meaning based on my experience, yes, but I would have to defer to looking that up but in my practice, I definitely see a little bit of a correlation. So it may be, but I think that's something we would have to look up.
Does
So with that-
hypertension and diabetes fit? Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Nikki. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Pete.
No, I'm just
go
gonna.
ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just gonna try to make the correlation between the inflammation of sarcoid and the inflammation that happens in the other two subjects that we were going to talk about, which is hypertension and obesity. So does anybody want to open this up as to how that inflammation plays a role in either one of those disorders?
Well, I think hypertension for sure is people say, well, you should, cut the salt down, right? And that's fine. You can cut the salt down and that pipe won't have the water being attracted into it and it will have a lower pressure. But, everybody's not salt sensitive. People of color tend to be more salt sensitive, but there's plenty of people that can eat salt and be just fine. But what I tell my patients is that the salt didn't cause your blood vessel to get stiff. The cholesterol didn't cause your blood vessel. It wasn't the cholesterol or the salt. It was the inflammation, again, going back to a diet that is inflammatory. So rather you take a vegetarian vegan approach, like my colleague, Dr. Mason, or you take a low carb approach, both of those approaches will reduce inflammation. Therefore, if you have a blood vessel that's more elastic, it will expand when you have salt in your diet. I'm not suggesting you just go put a lot of salt in your mouth. What I'm saying is that you got to get to the root cause. So absolutely, there's a correlation. And then if you're, so for hypertension, now when you talk about diabetes is an inflammatory condition. So there's something called glycation. And just think about glycation, glucose. And if you have a lot of extra sugar floating around, then guess what? It's going to irritate a lot of things in your body, your kidneys, your eyes, etc. And your body's going to try to kick all that sugar out, and that's when your kidneys start to fail. So the inflammation that's caused from diabetes will then increase your risk for, think about all the things that diabetes does. It increases your risk for a heart attack. Why? Because the inflammation in your blood vessels causes problems. Increase your risk for a stroke. Why? Because the inflammation in the arteries in your brain can lead to a stroke. Increase your risk for kidney disease. Increase your risk for amputation because it affects not only the circulation in your legs, but it affects the nerves because all that extra sugar floating around irritating your nerves. It's all inflammation. So I think that the good news is it's all preventable. This is not, you're born with this stuff, The key now, I had planned to cheat for Easter. I went to my mama house. I said it. Did I say it right, Nikki? Mama. And my mama made some dressing, right? Now, I'm a low carb guy. One serving of dressing is probably 40, 50 carbs, right? Now, I should periodically I honor my mom and I eat dressing. The reason why I decided, I promise you, I had an aunt who ran in the house and she was celebrating, and she's probably listening to this right now, that she had made a dietary change. And she was so excited. So I just felt a little awkward eating what I told her not to eat while she was with us celebrating. And of course, we all were vaccinated. I want to throw that out there. So my point is this. One of the reasons why I made that decision wasn't really just my aunt. It's because my hands sometimes ache when I eat foods that are inflammatory. Sometimes my stomach gets irritated. So I would have a great dinner. It would have been wonderful. And then that night, I probably would have had a stomach issue. So sometimes we make decisions not based on what we feel like doing. It's based on what we need to be doing. And so as you learn these principles and you listen to your body, then you will then be able to make better decisions that will keep you healthy. And so all this inflammation, diabetes, as my brother suggested, Dr. Pete, diabetes, all this stuff, hypertension, what we're talking about, sarcoid, it's all the same disease. What I'm trying to get people to understand is the same disease. It's the disease of inflammation. And your job as you listen to us each and every week is to figure out where the inflammation in your life is coming from. If you're watching the news every night and then you're stressed about the news for the next week, why are you watching the news every night? If you're in a bad relationship and that relationship is not serving you, why are you still in that relationship? So we have to make better decisions so that we can have a better life. And this is not rocket. The kid in kindergarten can tell you, if it ain't right, why you keep doing that? So my job is to just remind you to connect the dots, not to judge you, not to say you don't know what you're doing, not to talk about my colleagues who didn't learn nutrition. It's to say, if this is not serving who you need to be in the future, the old you needs to get out of the way so the new you can show up. And the new you wants to be healthy and have a long, healthy life. And that's what this is all about. And I really appreciate everybody that's listening tonight, because you didn't have to be listening to us tonight. It was a beautiful day. And I want you to take these nuggets and walk away with something that you can actually act on and say, I'm going to do something different tomorrow.
You know, I just want to pick up on something that Dr. Hampton said, and that's this thing about inflammation, just to drive it clearly home. So if you were to take some sandpaper and just start rubbing it on your skin, you wouldn't be surprised if the layers of skin start coming off. Or if you kept falling down on your knee and on the concrete and scraping your knee, you wouldn't get up and get down and do that again, and then do that again, and then do that again, and then do that again, which is exactly what you do when you eat the foods that cause the inflammation. You are continuing to cause the problem that's causing the problem. And until you do something about that. Now, one of the things you probably heard people talk about are anti-inflammatory things that are anti-inflammatory and they work against inflammation. And we have drugs, we call them things like aspirin and ibuprofen and things of that nature. But we also have anti-inflammatory foods that will also fight inflammation. Most of those are foods that come out of the ground. Okay, that's what most of them do. And the ones that have great colors do a really good job of doing it. That is their job. So there's a reason why there are these kinds of fruits and vegetables. They have these colors, these very attractive colors that are picked up by your eye. And unless you blunt that response away, you'd like to see it. You like to see the reds of a strawberry or the purples of a plum or blueberries. Those are pretty colors, and they're pretty because the body is telling the eye is telling the body, you need to eat some of that. And they make it so you don't have to do anything. All you got to do is pick it up, rinse it off, and eat it. That's the way it works. So if you want to do something that's anti-inflammatory, it's not found in a bottle of Advil, though that's an anti-inflammatory, but that's not the one I'm talking about. And sometimes there's a role for an Advil or an aspirin or some of the other medications. But we have to understand that zero of the medications that we are prescribed cure anything. None of them, zero. They are all taken to manage the complication of the problem. So yes, and I'm not saying they're not important, because they are absolutely important in a certain phase of your disease, or if you have high blood pressure or things of that nature. But you can take blood pressure medication from now to the day you die. And if you don't make any changes in either your activity level or in the foods that you eat, your blood pressure, all you got to do is stop the pill a few days and the pressure goes right back up again. So it corrects the number, but it doesn't solve the problem. So we want you to understand that you have a responsibility to do what we know will make a difference for you and the life of not only you, but the people that you serve and love.
Can I just add to that? The point that's being made is that this is to be empowered. You, the patient, to be empowered, or you, the person who may not have these issues at this time, but if you continue to do things that put you at risk, it increased that. But ultimately, if you're empowered, then you may be able to. You can do things to prevent some of these problems from occurring. And then just a few words about. One of the other things, as Dr. Doug talked about, that one of the first treatment that is used for sarcoidosis is steroids. And steroids, they're powerful anti-inflammatory, so they stop the inflammation as long as you're taking them. However, they do have a lot of side effects. So we talk about diabetes and the steroids called glucose intolerance. So suddenly you become diabetic related to the steroids that you are taking. So all these medications can be helpful and oftentimes needed. However, you need to be able to do something that will enhance and help you to get off of the medication as quickly as possible without the process restarting and creating additional inflammation, because otherwise you're continuing to destroy your organs and the tissue and various organ systems. So ultimately, you need to take charge of what you're doing in terms of your diet, in terms of your activity, that can help to decrease and reduce the inflammation.
And then if I could just add too, my public health training would tell me don't leave out the upstream problems too. So while we think you should be empowered to make these changes, there's also forces that are working against you, right? Mm-hmm. So our communities are not necessarily the food plethora of the kind of fresh fruit and vegetables that we would want them to be, right? So we talk about crime and things like that prevent us from being as active in the community. But those are all the things that in your mind I have to do in addition to taking your medicine. I just want to say that. I don't want people walking out of here thinking, okay, I heard the couch conversation, I'm stopping all medicines and I'm starting on my fruit and vegetables, and I'm going to protest the government for not putting enough vegetables in my... No, take your medicine. Because like Dr. Hampton said, that stiff blood vessel that you have, if the more damage that happens to that stiff blood vessel, which means the more that sandpaper that Dr. Mason talked about is scraping, that's more damage that happens. The more damage, the more plaque buildup. The more plaque buildup, the less the blood flow, and then that hinders the organ behind it that needs that blood. So that's why we want to continue the medicine, relaxes that blood vessel, allow the blood flow. But there are things that you can do, and I always tell my patients this, that empower you to make decisions that are working in conjunction with the medicine and not against the medicine. Because it's like the old folks used to say, you can't cut off your nose to spite your face, right? So don't take medicine and then go eat some rib tips. Okay. So you got to do something. Make sure that you're doing the things that are in conjunction with. And so, and I know my line brother would say, well, but all you gotta do is just not put the sauce on there. You'll be all right.
Medicines are bridge therapy. So
yes.
Now that doesn't work for everybody. If you have inflammation year after year after year after year after year, and the cholesterol's covering all those blood vessels, eventually it's going to turn into cement. So for some people, it's too late, but for most people, it's not too late. So I literally 98% of the people listening who make a lifestyle change will benefit. But I just want you to understand, you gotta be patient with it, because sometimes that cement, it's kind of hard to break it up when it's been like 40 years of eating the wrong food. So, but I appreciate you, Brother Pete, because you have to be careful when you speak the language of healing. People misinterpret things. So we don't want to, this is not like it fixes overnight. You've been doing this for year after year, so it takes time to heal.
One other thing I'd like to
Have
add
you
to the
been
conversation. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
One of the things I want to add is this notion of symptoms. And we really need to really put the word symptom in perspective, because symptoms aren't usually early. Symptoms usually happen later in the disease process. When you have a symptom from the irritation causing a blockage in your artery to your heart and you get chest pain, that's not early, that's late.
Yeah.
Okay. When you get a symptom and it's causing some weakness on one side of your body, that's not early, that's late. So we need to understand what symptoms are, and you don't want to take a medication that's just going to cover up the symptom without you really seeing your physician and helping you to get to the cause. Because there is, and I always sound like, I guess, a communist or something, but there is a book written by Mr. Moynihan called Selling Sickness. Mr. Moynihan was the CEO of Merck, which was a major drug company. And his whole, you got to remember that these people that are in the business of making drugs are in the business of selling drugs. And Mr. Moynihan said he wanted to be more like Wrigley in his book. In other words, he wanted to have everybody have some, like Wrigley makes chewing gum. Moynihan wanted everybody to have medication that they were taking. So, and he wanted them to have medicine made by his company, Merck Sharp and Dohme. So we have to understand that there is a value proposition, a money-making proposition in the sale of medications, prescription or not. And so what we're trying to get you to see, my colleagues on this panel, is that the best medicine that you can take is eating the right food and drinking the right liquids. And I say the right liquids because we have some liquids that cause more problems, and inhalation agents like cigarettes that cause, I don't care what you have, if you smoke, it makes it worse.
That's right.
It makes it worse. I mean, I don't think there's a person on this panel that would debate that. And so, and I'm not saying, and again, I agree with my colleague, I'm not trying to put the onus on the individual, because there's systems in place to encourage you to do the wrong thing. When you can wake up at night and see if you got a big TV in your bedroom and you wake up and you see a 65-inch hamburger with cheese and grease and stuff dripping off of it and all that kind of stuff. If you weren't hungry, and then all you got to do is pick up the phone and Uber Eats will bring it right to your door at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I'm just saying, and I'm not trying to be overbearing with this, but I can't help it because I see too many of our people dying too soon. And to Dr. Pete's point, I know you don't see children, but I'm very concerned with what I see in our children. We don't have an adult obesity a problem. We do, but we also have an immense obesity issue, hypertensive issue, type 2 diabetes issue. And my other colleagues like Dr. Pete could speak to that more, with type 2 diabetes in our children. Many of these children will not live long enough to get the long-term consequences.
Thank you, my brother. You woke me up when you started talking about meat, so I'm not going to focus on I woke up, but I'm good. So I wanted to I noticed that we had a couple
hamburgers
of
on the stove right now.
Right. I'm like trying to say, baby, close that door, close that door. So anyway, I wanted to, Linda Johnson, thank you for your question. Is there anything a person can take naturally to thin their blood. I just want to just go through a couple of really quick comments, and my colleagues can add. I just want to go through them so we won't miss them. And for me, when I recommend turmeric a lot. There is a brand that's particularly helpful in my nutrition training. Is by Meriva, and that's Meriva. Meriva. You probably got to go to Amazon, but that's 29 times more potent than any other form of turmeric on the market. They add some metabolite to it, and it's very effective. So I want to mention turmeric. You should not take these supplements if you're on a blood thinner. I mean, that should be obvious, but I want to say that out loud. I'm trying to follow my brother's advice of being cautious here. And then I'll just mention ginger and garlic as well. So those are the three things. There's plenty of other things, but we don't have time to go through a list of 20. The other question that came up that I wanted to, and you guys chime in once I walk through these. I'm old. This is from Virginia Knight. I'm old. I think I now need more sleep than 4 to 5 hours, but I wake up so assuming that I have enough, but that's not what I'm hearing from the doctors. And so the one thing that you may want to do is get your, when I had a guest, the sleep doctor, Dr. Michael Bruce, so if you type in thesleepdoctor.com, he has sleep quizzes that you can take. One's about your chronotype, and a chronotype just reflects, are you a night owl? Are you a morning person? Blah, blah, blah. And once you kind of know what type of sleep pattern you have, it'll give you a better idea of how much sleep you need and when you should be trying to get that sleep. And that's why our teenagers, they stay up very late, because they have a different chronotype and our babies sleep all the time because they have different chronotypes. It's based on their melatonin and other factors. I just wanted to say that. So I would use that as a reference. But at the end of the day, most people do need 7 and 8 hours, but there are people who need like 6.5, and that's enough. The sleep doctor only gets 6 hours and 15 minutes, and he feels fine. So it depends on a lot of factors, and you need to do that quiz to get that. And then the last question that I wanted to comment on, which was dealing with, it said, this is from Mary Bellinger, and she said, can your good cholesterol cancel out some of the bad cholesterol and balance it? So cholesterol is a very complicated thing. And what I would ask you to do is to ask your doctor to measure things other than just cholesterol. So I would say, first of all, when it comes to cholesterol, they have particle sizes that your doc can measure. So I would ask the doc to measure the particle sizes. The large buoyant particles are less inflammatory. They don't get into the crevices of the artery. The small particles are more of a problem. So maybe instead of just getting a cholesterol level, get that. Some docs can measure your ratios. They'll look at the triglycerides divided by the HDL. They'll look at the total cholesterol divided by the HDL. These are much better markers of whether or not your cholesterol matters. You can get a coronary artery calcium score test. Within our health system with Advocate Aurora, it's a $49 test. They just scan your heart and see what's going on. That's way better than a cholesterol test. So I guess the short answer to your question is that in some ways, yeah, if you got a lot of good cholesterol, it does kind of balance the bad, but it's really more complicated than that. And you want to learn about things like how you reduce your triglycerides. And so I think it's more complex to answer in one simple answer, but there are better tests you can ask your doctor to do that'll help you. So I just wanted to throw those out so we wouldn't have those questions lingering, and anybody want to comment, feel free.
We have a question from Periscope that's asking, does keto increase your triglycerides?
It's quite the opposite when you eat a diet. So think of it this way. So think of the triglycerides as fats in your blood, right? So if you eat a diet that has the right fats in it, then your body becomes a fat burner, right? And if you burn fat as fuel, then you'll actually reduce the triglycerides in your blood. So if I have somebody that's on a low carb diet, as an example, I know that they're doing it if their triglycerides plummet. I've had people with triglycerides of 600, and they do this diet and it goes down to 150, just like that, because you're consuming the triglycerides. You're using the triglycerides as a fuel source instead of letting them float around and actually cause damage in your arteries. So it's actually the opposite of what was questioned.
Okay. Is there anything you can do to make turmeric taste better?
You take a damn. Oops, I mean
That's
you take a capsule. What I recommended, the Marie. I didn't mean to. I slipped a little bit, line brother. What happens is you take a capsule, because I do not take the. I do have the turmeric that you find in a seasoning rack, but I actually take capsules because you don't taste anything other than maybe a little burp effect. But yeah, that's what I would do. And I apologize to all the
Hey, Dr. Hampton. Is it true that when you take whatever supplement you take, that the natural herb or substance your body responds better to than a capsule or tablet? Now, I don't know.
Yes and no. Like the problem is when they do the short answer is in a way, yeah, because when you any type of food, and I'm sure Dr. Mason totally agrees, you don't, it comes in a package, right? And that package has all this other stuff that is going to provide the type of support your body needs to metabolize this product. The problem is that all the research we do is based on taking a substance like turmeric and having high dosages of it. So you could argue that's why even supplements can cause side effects, because it's almost too much. So whenever possible, you want to try to consume things in their natural form. However, if you have a specific problem that you really need to get ahead of, you may have to do that in the short term just to kind of get the benefits you're looking for. It's just very, they just don't like the soup. Like Dr. Mason would say, it may be the soup that's helping you, but they don't want to do the soup. They want to get one ingredient and figure out what that one, but it may be the soup, and that's what, so I think it's hard to get the data to answer that question, because they never do research on the soup. They do research on that little carrot, and then they take the carrot and then they want to find out what's in the carrot. And then they want to break that down. By the time you look up, you're not even eating soup anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So we definitely want to say hello. Tons of people have joined us, and we want to say thank you for being here and hello. So to Sean Kennedy, of course, Virginia Knight, to Kathleen Jackson, to Michelle Garrison that is here with us on this evening, to Judy Isaac, to Karen Peterson, who is here, to Angela M. Green for that great question that she asked, and also to Jerome Montgomery for the same. He had an outstanding question, just as well as they all. To Audrey Jaycock, she says, bingo, Dr. Hampton, thanks. Making better decisions. Jack Lynch from Gift of Hope says hello to everybody, and he is here just as well. We want to say hello to him. And once again, people are thanking you all for always being here, for always sharing this valuable information that is so valuable to them and their lives. And Dr. P, I want you and Dr. Miller to stop having conversations about me in them rib tips. I know you told it, Dr. Miller. I know you did. I ran up 3 flights of stairs 4 times in one day. I told Dr. Miller I deserve some rib tips after this. He told me I couldn't have none to go home. So I know y'all had that discussion. It's all right. It's all right, though. It's all right. Y'all talking about me behind my back. Yeah. But like Tony said, I can have them with no sauce on them.
Hey, Nikki, you are not alone with your demons, okay? We all are haunted by one of those demons, and that's mine as well.
Oh, it was like Dr. Miller turned around, real tip. You can defend the person. I'm like, I have been up them 3 flights of stairs 4 times. I deserve at least one real tip behind this. Oh, Wilbur Cook is here, and he says, another life-improving and experience and inspiring evening, doctors. Let the ladies know what they are missing. All right. Of course, I'm gonna say that sentence that nobody wants to hear, and that's our time. So I know you guys want to hear me say that, but that's our time. So we want to just remind you all. We want to remind you once again, that Monday nights is Couch Conversations with the Doctors, where health is wealth. We're going to go around this panel real quickly, and we're just going to share your until next Monday. Mary Ballinger says, to Rep. Danny Davis, thank you for standing up and fighting so hard for us and the seniors. Mary Ballinger, you are not a senior citizen, but I'm gonna go say that. I'm gonna say and the senior citizens. Okay. So we're gonna go around this panel real quickly, and we're going to just say your our until next Monday. So Dr. Douglas Graham, what's your until next Monday?
I'm going to say you want to look it up. Before you go to the grocery store, you want to look up what's in the food that you're eating. For instance, if you look at a tomato, you get low carbohydrates, but you get vitamins and minerals and antioxidants. So you can start to think about what am I putting in my body and what's going to be good for me.
Slice it up and put a little black pepper on it. It's nothing like it. All right, Dr. James Miller, your until next Monday.
Yeah, until next Monday, again, we would like for you to take this information that we're giving you tonight and be empowered that you can now make better choices in terms of your diet. And that is something that doesn't cost you anything extra.
Yeah.
All right, that's free. That's what you said, free 99. That's free. So Dr. Terry Mason, the man I'll be walking with on next Sunday. Dr. Terry Mason, you're until next Monday.
You'll be happy to know we walked 10 miles this weekend.
I'm gonna do 5.
Till next week, we should also give a big shout out to the Congressman, Danny Davis, who makes this possible every single week. It is the best form of information to his constituents that he can provide. And I thank him for the opportunity to be a part of it.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Dr. Tony Hampton, you're until next Monday.
That was, many of us are aware of the phenomenal motivational speaker, Eric Thomas, and sometimes I'll listen to him. So this morning I listened to him, and I just wanted to share that he said that, either you're a diamond or you're a cubic zirconia, right? Think about your body as a diamond, right? But in order to make the diamond, you have to put that, he said you got to put heat on it, you got to put pressure on it, and you even got to cut it, right? But once you are making a body that you want, it can't be broken. So if you follow the advice that we're giving you and you start to change your life incrementally, one day at a time, you'll be exactly what God intended. So work on that body. Spring is here. What better time to focus on you? So I just want to end with a message of healing and a message that you are the diamond that God made you to be.
Oh, Dr. P, you're until next Monday.
Just that we're approximately 56 million people in this country have been vaccinated. That's about 17% of the country. We're on our way. We're not done yet. So keep talking to your friends and relatives. Stay vigilant. I know the CDC has revised recommendations, but stay vigilant. Wear your mask. Watch your distance. Wash your hands. Those are my 3 W's plus the 2 V's: ventilation and vaccine. Power to the people.
Congressman Danny K. Davis, you're until next Monday. You're muted, Congressman.
I believe that everything begins with self. And I learned so much on Monday nights until I sometimes wonder if I have any room for Tuesday and Wednesday. And so trying to take in and absorb. But knowledge is empowering.
Yeah.
And when you have knowledge, then you are empowered. And you're in a much better position to make decisions that are going to benefit you. And so I feel so privileged to have such an esteemed group of practitioners come and share with us each and every Monday night, because it's nobody that can look after each and every one of us the same way that we can look after ourselves. And you know, one song we didn't sing it yesterday, but it says that if I die and my soul be lost, ain't nobody's fault but my own. And so, you know, after getting all of this information, if we don't heed it, then we're doing a disservice to ourselves. I often quote my father. And so when somebody asks me about giving information, I always say that my daddy said, be careful, because a wise man don't need it and a fool won't heed it. And so just take the information and do whatever you will do with it. Until next Monday. I'll stop right there.
So we want to remind you guys to grab us right here next Monday, same bat time, same bat channel. You know, as the Bible says, iron sharpens iron. And we're here to make sure that we keep each other sharpened. Iron sharpens iron. So remember to do those 3 great things that Dr. P talked about earlier. Wash those little hands. Make sure that you get in there really, really good. 20 seconds. Sing the birthday song. Make sure, let's get that done. So wash those hands. And don't forget to moisturize after so they won't look like leather. Also remember to social distance. We're so close. Stretch those arms out. If someone is touching you or you're touching them, just move back just a little bit. We are so close to where we need to be. And we also want to remind you to wear your face coverings. Make sure that you wear your face coverings and make sure that those face coverings are over your nose and mouth, wearing them properly over your nose and mouth at all times. And remember to get vaccinated. See you next week right here.
Where's my
right.
mask?
See you all.
Where's my mask? I want my couch conversation